Mr. Peter Obi. I went to Christ the King College on Onitsha. I was in University of Nigeria and Nsukka. For trainings, I've been to several other institutions of the world, some of which I'm an alumnus, like Oxford, Cambridge, Kellogg, and the Lagos Business School. Some I wasn't an alumnus, but I passed through there, like London School of Economics, Harvard, Columbia. I was doing a business in the UK. I have a company. As at the time I left the UK, I have the highest credit rating any UK person can. The record is still there. The house I own in the UK is still there. What I did in the UK is still there. I ran a business. I came back here. I was a director in several institutions. When I became chairman of Fidelity Bank, they told me I'm entitled to 2 vehicles as chairman. I said I'm not entitled to anything. I want to come here and do board meeting and go. And here you can verify.
All right, how are you guys? I'm back. Who is this man, Peter Obi? I want to talk to you guys about who is this man, Peter Obi, that have awakened the consciousness of the young, that have awakened the conscience of the youth in Nigeria, both young and elderly. Who is this man, Peter Obi? The elite will be wondering, where did this come from? They were not expecting that this man will rise from nowhere to awake the consciousness of the youth, and again, being from the East. This is the worst time the elite have never wanted to come. Who are Peter Obi and Obi-Kwankwaso? And why has their movement awakened the nation? Something extraordinary is happening in Nigeria. For decades, Nigerian politics has largely been dominated by the same political establishments, the same network of influence, the same political calculations, and too often the same cycle of promises followed by disappointments. But something has changed. Something has clicked. The sleeping beast have been waking up. A generation of Nigerians that was once told to remain silent has found its voice. Young Nigerians are asking questions. Older Nigerians are questioning old political loyalties. Professionals are becoming political conscious. People who previously said politics is not for me are beginning to say, this is my country and I cannot remain indifferent. And at the center of this political awakening are 2 different men, Peter Gregory Obi, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. They come from different regions, different background, different ethnic groups, but they have movements. They built their different political movements. They have different political histories, but their emerging alliance represents something Nigerian politics desperately need. The possibility of North-South political cooperation based on national objectives rather than permanent ethnic competition. In May 2026, Obi and Kwankwaso formally joined the Nigerian Democratic Congress, with both presenting their corporations as part of an effort to build a united country, secure and prosperous Nigeria. And Kwankwaso's explanation is particularly significant. He said, and I quote, he and the northern political leaders looked around and asked who was capable of working with them honestly to move Nigeria forward, and concluded that Peter Obi was at the forefront of those possibilities. What a man. That is bigger than 2 politicians sharing a platform. It is a political experiment in breaking the old Nigerian formula. North versus the South, Christian versus the Muslim, Igbos versus the Hausa, young versus the old. Imagine what happened when Nigerians began saying, my candidate does not have to come from any ethnic group for me to support him. That is the beginning of nation building, friends. Why Peter Obi? That is the question that is in every lip of every Nigerian. Why Peter Obi? That question must be answered. Peter Obi's greatest political achievement may not even be the number of votes he received in 2023. Let's face the facts. It may be what happened after the election. What happened after the election? He demonstrated that millions of Nigerians, particularly young Nigerians, could become politically engaged without relying on the traditional machinery of Nigerian politics. The Obedient movement became a powerful example of grassroots political mobilizations, with supporters organizing themselves, campaigning digitally, discussing policies, and challenging established political narratives. That is significant because political apathy has always been one of the Nigerian greatest weaknesses. A country where millions of citizens believe their vote don't matter is easy for political leader elite to control. A country where citizens become political conscious is much harder to manipulate. But Obi's appeal should not be reduced to emotions. His supporters point to his emphasis on production, education, human capital, fiscal responsibilities, security, and institutional reform. Discipline. The question Nigerians should therefore ask is not, do I love Peter Obi? The question is, can the ideas associated with his movement produce measurable improvement in the lives of Nigerians? That is the standard he should be held to, friends. That is the standard he should be held to. Now, why Kwankwaso? That is the same question that is in every lips of every Nigerian. Why Kwankwaso? A northern politician, a formidable politician, pairing with a southeastern politician. And this is where the Obi-Kwankwaso combination becomes particularly interesting. Kwankwaso is not an internet politician. He has spent decades building a political organization and has a substantial grassroots following in the north, particularly through the Kwankwaso movement. He has also governed Kano and served as a federal minister and is also a senator. His political strength is therefore different from Obi's. Obi brings a powerful reform-oriented and youth-driven constituency, while Kwankwaso brings deep grassroots political organizations and northern reach. Together, they potentially address one of the greatest weaknesses of Nigerian opposition: fragmentation. Yes, you heard me right. Fragmentation. That is precisely why the possibility of their alliance has generated so much political attention. Supporters of both movements have even created an Obi-Kwankwaso political movement ahead of 2027 election. But this is not about creating another political messiah. Let's get it right. This is not about creating another political messiah. This point must be emphasized and re-emphasized and re-emphasized. Nigeria does not need another politician whom citizens blindly worship. Nigeria needs accountability, and if Obi becomes president, Nigeria must hold him accountable. If Kwankwaso occupies a major leadership position, Nigeria must hold him accountable. If they make promises, Nigeria must demand measurable results. If they fail, Nigeria must criticize them. If they succeed, Nigeria should acknowledge it. That is democracy. That is nation building. The goal should never be Obi can do no wrong or Kwankwaso can do no wrong. No politician deserves that kind of unconditional loyalty. The real movement should be bigger than one man or both men. Why the real revolution is the awakening? Why is the real revolution is the awakening? This is why I believe that the most important phenomenon surrounding Obi-Kwankwaso is not necessarily the personalities themselves. It is the awakening of Nigerian citizens, both youth, young, and old. For years, politicians depend on Nigeria being divided on regional basis, religion, or ethnicity. One politician would tell the South that the North was the problem. Another would tell the North that the South was the problem. Another would mobilize religion. Another would mobilize ethnicity. Another would distribute small gifts during election. And then after the election, the people will return to the same hardship and suffering. But imagine a Nigeria where a young person in Lagos can support a politician from Kano because he believes that that politician represents his future. Imagine a person in Kano supporting a politician from Anambra because he believes that person or that politician can improve Nigeria. Imagine Christians and Muslims campaigning together. Imagine Northerners and Southerners demanding the same thing: security, jobs, electricity, education, healthcare, competent leadership, justice, and accountability. That is the Nigeria we should be fighting for. The biggest test of Obi and Kwankwaso is around the corner. And what it is? The biggest test of Obi and Kwankwaso is around the corner. And I ask what it is. Their greatest challenge is not defeating Tinubu. Their greatest challenge is improving that they can build something better than the system they want to replace. It is easier to say, I can do this, I can do that. But can you build something better than what you are promising or what you are seeing at present? They must demonstrate that their alliance is not simply an electoral arrangement. They must produce a credible economic program. They must explain how they will deal with insecurity. They must strengthen institutions rather than weaken them. They must demonstrate fiscal discipline. And they must explain how they will create jobs for millions of young Nigerians. They must guarantee that appointment will be based increasingly on competence rather than political loyalties. They must show Nigerians that corruption will not simply change, beneficiaries. And most importantly, friends, they must prove that Nigeria can finally become a country where the child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. That is the real promise. Now, are Obi and Kwankwaso the men who can redirect Nigeria? I'm being figurative in asking these questions and giving answers because we are looking for solutions to move that country forward. Are Obi and Kwankwaso the men who can redirect Nigeria? Perhaps. I can play God, but I can also suggest. History, not emotion, must ultimately answer that question. What we can say today is that the emerging partnership represents a potentially significant political realignment. It brings together two major political constituencies. It challenges the assumption that Nigerian politics must permanently remain divided along regional lines, or ethnic lines, or religious lines. And it has demonstrated that millions of Nigerians are no longer willing to sit quietly and accept whatever political elite decide for them. Like what happened in Osun. Even critics acknowledge that Obi has generated substantially youth enthusiasm, while analysts also point out that enthusiasm alone does not equal electoral machinery or guarantee victory. That is precisely why Nigeria must move beyond personalities politics. Don't simply shout Obi. Don't simply shout Kwankwaso. Ask the difficult questions. Demand the numbers. Demand accountability. Demand competence. Also demand results. Okay? Because the ultimate movement should not be, the ultimate movement should not be Obi-Kwankwaso must save Nigeria. It should be, rightly, Nigerians must save Nigerians. Obi and Kwankwaso can provide leadership. Okay? They can provide political vehicle. Okay? They can provide ideas. They can provide organization. All right? But the Nigerian people must remain the owners of the movement. I want you guys to listen to me properly. The Nigerian people must remain the owners of the movement. And perhaps that is why this movement feels different. Even the elite are scared with a lot of propaganda. Because of the first time in a long time, millions of Nigerians are not merely asking anymore, who will become president? They are asking, what kind of country do we want to become? The beast has woken up. That is the question that should terrify every politician who believes Nigeria can forever be manipulated by ethnicity, religion, money, or political intimidation. Because an awoken citizen is harder to deceive. Okay? An awoken beast is harder to be tamed. And a united Nigerian people are harder to be divided. The future of Nigeria cannot belong permanently to a political elite. It must belong to the people. It must belong to Nigerian people, the citizens. We are loyal to the constitutions and not to the personalities, not to the individual that occupy that office. And if Obi and Kwankwaso truly want to lead that transformation, then they must understand one thing and one thing only. Nigerians are not looking for another set of rulers. They are looking for leaders who will finally serve them. Let me repeat that. I don't know if somebody's hearing me properly. Write in the comment section if you're hearing me properly. Nigerians are not looking for another set of rulers. They are looking for a leader who will finally serve them, serve their interests. Nigerian greatness will not come from one man. It will come with when millions of Nigerians decide that the country belongs to them and refuse to surrender it. Friends, I can keep talking and has no end. Do not surrender your nations to the few elite that think that you cannot be woken up. Now the beasts have been woken up and cannot be tamed. You own the power, decide who gets the power, vote, get prepared, vote, defend your vote, and make sure you obtain your victory. And that is how we move the country forward. I raise my case.